Welcome to the Hiding in Plain Sight podcast, where we explore the transformative power of inclusivity and the strength found in vulnerability. I'm your host, Lindsey Mazza, and with each episode, together we will go on a journey of reconnecting with all parts of ourselves to foster healing and inspire a more inclusive and compassionate world for all. So grab your headphones and settle in for soul-fulfilling discussions that will make you laugh, provoke thought, and be the catalyst for growth. Let's dive in. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Hiding in Plain Sight. Today, I have Chung joining me, and I'm so excited. We met really organically through a podcast community, and we're going to learn so much from her today. Michelle is a love strategist for high-achieving women, entrepreneurs, and professionals, and she's a podcast host of Love, Life, and Energy, a best-selling author of How to Stop Dating and Be in a Committed, Effortless Relationship, serial entrepreneur, property investor, and has hacked the process to finding the right man and relationship that supports your vision, career, and lifestyle without dating or using online apps. Hi, Michelle. Welcome.
Hello. Thank you for having me. Super excited to see you again and hang out.
Yeah, I'm so excited because this is obviously a topic that women everywhere are talking about. And I love how we're going to be able to connect it to the hiding in plain sight, because I think, women really struggle, especially ones that are self-proclaimed high-achieving women, in finding relationships and really struggle to be seen. So, tell us about all of it, like your journey to getting here and how you help women be seen in all of their power.
Yeah, I love it. I love the theme of your podcast, Lindsey, because it is the hiding in plain sight. It's like we're all wanting to find the attention from the right person. And that's often the hardest thing. Like, you can be seen by your community, by your workplace, by friends, peers, but getting the attention from the right person is the tricky part. And that's what I help women with. I guess it comes back to my own story of, being an ambitious woman myself, and I was married in my 30s, and it was fine. It was a great marriage. He was an amazing guy. He was just not the right guy for me anymore. I had done a lot of personal growth. Wanted to see the world, and our core values didn't match. So that's one of the things I always, advise, like, match on values, not on hobbies, because the hobbies can change, but your values are something that's really a priority and an important thing for you. And you will actually filter out and meet the right kind of people, especially the right guy, your soulmate, because you're living your values and your vision. And before we hit record, Lindsey, we were talking about, meeting somebody who's aligned with what you're doing. So when that is something you're passionate about, and you're just being you and you're just doing yourself, and that is the way to be seen by the right people. And that's pretty much, my story, where I'm from Sydney. I grew up here, and I was divorced, and I was like, how do I be single again? What do I do? Oh, I just go on dating apps. That's the thing you do now, right? This whole process of, meeting people online, and yes, you can be seen. You can be a great marketer and a great copywriter, and then you'll be seen, but by the right person, not so sure about that. That's where the dating apps are kind of going a little bit awry, because you're trying to market yourself to people when you don't know who's out there. And it's a little bit harder to really shine and be seen for who you are, your authentic self, because there's a lot of noise out there. So I always recommend, don't do the dating thing. Like, I'm basically an anti-dating coach. I don't recommend it, because it kind of leads you astray to trying to, please what's out there, rather than trying to live authentically. And, you really attract the right people from being who you are.
Yeah, I love that. And I mean, there's so many layers to that, because I think, and I want to hear what your thoughts are, but listening to you speak, part one is women first need to see themselves before they can expect to be seen by other people, right? So I think that, especially in the corporate world, or you're climbing the ladder, you're fulfilling this role that society has assigned to you. And I think that often the result of that is this disconnect from yourself. So when you say things like core values, I think most people don't even know what their core values are.
No.
Right? So then how are you calling in the right people? And what you end up doing is you're on these dating apps, and you're just often, looking for validation or looking for somebody to complete you, instead of living your best damn life and figuring out you, right?
Yeah. 100%. You've hit that on the head. And I like to say, we live our lives, like we choose our career, where we want to live. We choose our friends based on our values. Like those are things that are important for us. Like I left my career, 18-year career in manufacturing. I was an industrial designer, product developer, because I didn't want to develop fast-moving consumer goods, basically, i.e., landfill anymore,
Right.
because my values are, the environment, being conscious about your natural living space and
Mm.
the impact that humans have on our world, right? So that didn't align with my values anymore. And it seems like this is the kind of thing people, do anyway with their careers. They would leave a company because it doesn't align with them, or they just get fed up with the management, right? So why don't we approach our relationships in this way where we're seeking out someone with aligned values? Because you're going to be, with this person for a lot of the time in your day, and potentially for years or the rest of your life. Although, we have multiple soulmates, and I don't necessarily think we're going to be with one person forever. But you're going to be spending a heck of a lot of time with this person. So it would be ideal if they're also aligned to your vision and what you want to accomplish in your life.
Yeah, absolutely. So when women come to see you, I would imagine that first step is getting them like really comfortable with knowing themselves because I think the other thing that's important is to give people permission to allow their values to change because they do over time. And resisting that evolution just keeps you in a life that's no longer meant for you. So, right? Like it's radically accepting, okay, I'm going to totally shift and take all that comes with it.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. And I think where, some of the mistakes or where women we go wrong because we don't know this stuff and, it's not your fault
Mm-hmm.
because we were never taught this either, is that there's three particular steps that I've identified and a lot of women do maybe one or two and then kind of hope and pray and wish that, something's going to happen and then it doesn't happen and then it's like, oh, well, that doesn't work. And so if you're following these three steps in this order, it kind of allows things to happen organically. Universe or God or whoever starts to understand what you're actually wanting and
Right.
starts giving you what you've asked for. So in knowing yourself, it seems like an intangible process because it's like, well, how do you do that? So like to try to break it down into very practical, pragmatic steps. So when we're wishing for something that we want, often we're not getting it because there's potentially a block in the way, what I call love blocks or emotional or mental blocks. So these can stop you from getting what you want, manifesting or wishing for or asking for what you want because there's a resistance. Exactly what you pointed out before. There's a resistance. And that resistance is actually, especially if you're a high achieving woman, you get stuff done, you put your mind to it, you make a decision, you go for it, right? And that ability to get stuff done, that is the masculine. But what that resistance relates to is that hey, if you can get it done and you end up in the relationship, that relationship actually isn't what you want. So that's what you're resisting. So, for example, a client, had a pattern of going through a relationship where she'd end up feeling trapped. She'd lose her independence. She was a successful business owner. She's a doctor. And what we identified with this resistance was she's going to be worse off if she actually achieves what she wants, her goal of being in a relationship. So with that in your mind, in your subconscious programming,
Mm-hmm.
you've naturally got this sequence of events where it's like, well, if I do A, then I get B, or if I get B, I really don't want B, so I'm going to just block myself. So that's our first step. We have to uncover what that may be. And a lot of people say, well, I don't have resistance. This same client actually said, no, I don't have resistance. I don't need to do this exercise. But that was actually the breakthrough that she got, within 6 to 8 months later, she actually met someone. She called it her karmic soulmate. So, love doesn't have to be hard. It doesn't have to be a long process. It can happen actually very quickly, but we need to, like we were talking before we hit record, we need to identify what specifically you need to do that is going to give you the biggest leverage to what you want to achieve. And often it's that first step of just releasing that resistance.
Yeah, and I think like just to break it down, in steps that I talk about with people, because I think that the way we approach love, health, food, work is really the same. Like our blocks come down to the same sense of self. And, like you're talking about that client, that block, it's a form of self-sabotage, right? It's
Yes.
you're going to engage in behaviors that will sabotage you going to that level that like cognitively you want to go to, but your sense of self lacks the worthiness to actually obtain it. So if you're not dealing with the underlining lack of self-worth, you're just going to keep self-sabotaging, right? It's like, when
Yeah,
people go on diets, they lose the same 20 pounds and then they hit a wall, they put it back on,
that's
right? It's
exactly
that
it.
upper limit theory.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
exactly it. And I guess my curiosity in, solving this problem that we have as a society of not getting what we want really led me to, I have a kinesiology and mind body medicine background, and I actually studied
Mm,
Psych K, another process that helps, give you really rapid results. It's really about these subconscious programming that we have built into us or that we've downloaded at a earlier stage in our life. This sounds complicated, but it's actually not. It's more like, think of it like we are computers, like we're one big
totally.
computer. We're able to download and upload new software, and we're able to learn things, we're able to retain things, and we're able to let go of things that we don't need, that are redundant. So, and a lot of therapists will relate back to this. As a child, we're a sponge up until, the ages of 6 or 7. We're constantly downloading programs at that age because we're in I think our alpha brainwave state where we're actually more imprintable. So
Right.
all that stuff that was happening when you're a child gets downloaded so quickly. We don't even, at that age, we're not able to question things or reject things.
Mm.
So we're imprinted with that into our subconscious mind. It becomes part of our programming, kind of like when you learn to drive a car, you do the repetitions and all of a sudden it becomes part of your subconscious. You don't have to think how to drive a car.
Right.
You just get in your car, you're on the highway and you're like, oh, how did I end up here? I didn't even think that whole process.
Mhm.
So it's exactly like that with your dating, with the choices that you're making in your health and in your career and things like that. So what we need to do is take a step backwards towards that stage and simply, rewrite that programming. So that's step
Yeah.
2 in my program. And, it, like I said, it doesn't need to be hard. It doesn't need to be stressful or dramatic. And we humans make it that way because we have
Yeah.
emotions. But if we look at it from a very pragmatic view, it's not a hard process and it can be done quite simply and easily.
Yeah, and we do overcomplicate it because, especially when you're talking with overachievers, it's like,
Yes.
okay, I've studied the book, I've written the test, I'm a straight A. So like obviously the next thing is that reward, right?
Yeah.
But it's not, this task. It's really, and it's hard to deal with the intangible as well, right? You wrap your head
Yeah.
around this more intangible process, but having the right support is so critical. And also being able to, I think, like, look at all your relationships in your life, right? Like I think if you're surrounded by a bunch of shitty friends, you're not going to
Yeah.
call in a great romantic partner, right? Because
Yeah.
they're a reflection of
100%.
your internal belief system.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%. 100%. And that's the saying they say, you're the average of the 5 people that you hang out with the
Mm,
most. And if your inner circle right now is not the kind of place that you want to be in your life, or you know, be okay with letting things go. And that's a massive part of, shifting, is that we need to release to create space so that we can actually receive. And that's the third step. Like, we've done all the releasing with step 1, and step 2, we're starting to create. Just to receive that now is the important part. And a lot of women block this because we're very much in our masculine energy. We're go-getters, we're
yeah.
achievers, we're outputting everything. Everything's external. And with that, there's no actual space to receive intuition, to receive the message of like, hey, why don't you go to this event or talk to this person, which actually then leads to creating space for your soulmate or your partner to actually drop in your life. And what you were saying, like, hiding in plain sight, he's probably right under your nose, but he can't see you and you can't see him. And there's
Right.
those 3 things, those 3 steps that are kind of just in the way. And it's actually just a really beautiful process.
Right. And there's that saying that says you don't attract or manifest what you want. You attract or
Hmm.
manifest what you are a match for, a vibrational match
Yes.
for. So, right, it's not about, having this laundry list of items that you want to call in. If you're not a vibrational match for the thing you're looking for, then like you said, you're going to keep missing them. That person could be in your life, but you guys are on totally different wavelengths.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah, you said that really well. It's like, to put it in, I guess, in a very in a different perspective. A guy, and I've interviewed many men for this, trying to figure out, what their opinion, what their view of dating and being with the right one. If he doesn't see you as an asset in his life, he's not going to want to invite you to come in. And it's the same way, it works both ways. If he's not an asset in your life, you're not going to invite him to come into your world either. Like you're not going to want to go for the guy who makes your life worse unless you have some of those emotional blocks that is feeding that kind of that emotional compensation that you need, right? That's why we have to release those blocks and that programming. But we want to, be in that way, build a life that he can't resist, basically. Then he's going to want to be part of it and he's going to come in naturally. He's going to be DMing you. You've had some experience with that where people just want to be part of your life because you're living this amazing, authentic version of yourself that's like no one else. You're irreplaceable, basically. And people want a piece of that. People want some of that energy, that goodness into their life as well.
Yeah. And I think that, when I was telling you before we started recording about this hiding in plain sight, like I'm creating this movement and, I'm going to be releasing my logo, and my logo has like a lighthouse in it because I really think it's all about turning your light on.
Yes.
Because when you turn your light on, the people that are meant for you get called in, right? Like,
yes.
The boats
Yes.
find their way to the lighthouse because the light is on. And I think
Yes.
it's really as simple as unapologetically living how you are meant to live and not subscribing to how you think people think you should live. And I think we live in a people-pleasing society, so that is really challenging for a lot of people. Yeah.
It's almost like, well, I mean, let's take it back to the school system. It's not okay to be out of line. It's not okay to speak up
Right.
out of, to authority and, not put your hand up if you want to say something. It's all very permission based from society around you. So that's literally how we've been trained. So it's not our fault that we continue our lives in this way and leads us to this kind of result because that's the way we've been trained. So we need to kind of change that paradigm, that education that will allow us to, really be kind to ourselves and go, yeah, I'm worthy of just being myself. I bring a lot of light to this world just by being myself.
Totally. You hear that throwaway line, like, you got to love yourself first and then love will find you. But I don't think that
Yep.
people actually appreciate what that means. And it's just like being
yeah.
totally okay with who you are, because when you are okay with you, like, you give people no choice but to be okay with you.
Yeah. And it actually invites a lot more respect because
Totally.
if right, like someone is kind of like, no, I can't do that because it doesn't align with my morals or my values. And then, you got to respect that. It's kind of like, oh, cool. She's really standing up for what she believes in. And I believe like exactly what you're doing, creating this movement, people will be swept up in your movement and be inspired, and they either become part of your movement or they'll be inspired to create their own movement. And that's really what we need to be doing. And it's not about like doing a lot of work to create, a bigger following and things like that. It's really just like what you said, aligning with who you are, and to put that in a more tangible context and like remove the cliches out of it, authentically what you're put down on earth to do, to achieve the contract that you gave yourself in your past life. I know this sounds very woo-woo, but it's like, and to understand that you're continuing a journey, that it's almost like you're on a mission, like a video game. You're on a mission to complete levels 1. You fight the big boss, which is some traumas or some experiences that you need to learn from so that you can go to level 2, the next level. And that's, if you take it at life as just a fun, beautiful expression of learning, that's a new way you could kind of just have a perspective that works.
Totally. And I think that, I was talking with someone the other day who was talking about how they aren't spiritual. And I, was saying, I'm very spiritual, but I also think spirituality gets a really bad rap because I just think being spiritual means that you are living your life authentically as a kind person and just really striving to leave the world a better place. And that's really at the root of all spirituality because we're all spiritual beings. And I think when you do that and also exercise your free will, right? Because I
Mm,
also like to highlight that for people. It's not like there's I don't believe that there's this pre-planned destiny. I think that we have a series of choices that we can make in our life to get to those next levels, as you said. And when we get to choose whether or not we want to take up that challenge. But it becomes really fun when people understand that like you really are in the driver's seat. Life's not happening to you. You get to
yes.
choose.
Yeah, I love it. Life is happening for you, to you. It's
100%.
it's a it's a great shift.
Yeah.
And when you start looking at it that way, you're actually in a more empowered way and you stop being the victim and start, being powerless because then you're able to actually enjoy the journey and actually have some really cool free choices that will lead to your next step, that will lead to a new learning. Love it.
Yeah. Yeah. So tell us a little bit about what that like, I guess deprogramming or like the reprogramming, is that hypnosis or what does that look like for you? How do you work with people on that?
Yeah. Well, it doesn't have to be complicated. Normally, the way I work is through my program, Manifest Love, and we just go through a series of exercises and questions. It's what coaching is about. It's about asking the deeper questions that will
Mhm.
unlock things within you and let go of and just really shift and change beliefs. I know this is probably not what people want to hear when it's like, I just want to meet my soulmate. I've got to change my beliefs. It sounds like a huge gap. So,
Mhm.
if you truly want to, focus on yourself and do that inner work, this is what you do, right? You need to um, almost transcend the way you've been living life and because that's the results that you're getting, and shift into a new state, a new identity in order to attract the reality that new identity has. So, for example, if you're a single woman and you're having an amazing life, which is amazing, but if you're constantly living that single life where you're, too booked out, you have too many activities, you're too busy to date, or you're not leaving any room for inviting somebody to come into your life, that's the reality that's going to keep happening for you. Whereas if you're shifting to a new reality or a new identity of like, I'm somebody who is a very desirable partner, then people will start to see you that way.
Right.
Oh, she's really steady. Oh, she's really like good at nurturing herself and the people around her. I want to be part of that life. I want to be part of what she's building.
Mm.
That's very different from, I've had some clients who are very much in I wouldn't say party mode, but traveling too much or not leaving any space for people to actually grow into a relationship. That's part of that self-sabotage and those resistance blocks as well. So
Don't you
it's
think
almost like
Sorry, I was
your
just gonna say,
behavior. Mm,
don't you think the overscheduling and like always having plans, like, because I've talked to people about this before, at the root of it, you are distracting yourself from yourself.
yeah,
So that's
100%.
really the problem, right? You don't want to be
Yeah.
alone with your own thoughts, and then you're just running from like basically providing yourself with the necessary acknowledgement and nurturing that you require in order to
Yeah.
heal those blocks.
100%. Yeah, 100%. You've said it so well. I did this myself when I first got
Yeah.
divorced. I didn't want to be alone. I just
Mhm.
went on dates that had no potential because I just didn't want to be, at home by myself. And, just not allowing myself time to be by myself because it was just too painful. It was just too, I just couldn't process that. I wasn't ready for that. But then when you get to a point where you kind of have to in order to progress to that next level, that next step in your game, that almost becomes a necessity because you've done the alternatives and it's not leading you to where you want to go. So what is the next move that's actually going to move the needle? It's actually going inwards, and that's the internal work, the feminine energy. The
Mhm.
feminine energy doesn't actually mean being more womanly or being girly or feminine. It actually means more about going internal as opposed to external, which is the masculine. So in Chinese medicine, it's seen in these two ways, masculine, feminine energy, but it doesn't always mean, being manly or being womanly. So that feminine energy that people talk about, we need to raise our feminine energy. It's more about going inwards and reflecting and accessing your intuition and being able
Right.
to receive.
I like to explain to people that the masculine energy is the acquirer. It is the energy that goes out, does the tasks, brings the goods home. And the
Yeah.
feminine energy, like you said, when you go internal, you're listening to yourself. It's receiving. It's receiving that internal insight. It's allowing yourself to be taken care of just by being. You don't need to
Yeah.
earn that, right? Which is
Mm,
so hard for high
yeah.
achieving women. It's as a self-proclaimed former recovering
Yeah.
one, it's like I'll just do it myself, but then you're
Yeah.
residing in the wounded masculine, and that
Yeah.
shifts the balance,
100%.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
It brings me to think your theme of hiding in plain sight, that's almost kind of what you're doing when you're going internal. Like you're still there physically, people still seeing you there, but internally, instead of going around in your head in circles, you're actually going inside and, well, hiding, but you're just being with yourself. And you're accessing it. I've heard it once before explained like the inner world is actually much, much bigger than the outer world. So it's
Hmm.
like the world within of your mind, the meditation can help you get in that into that internal is much more vast than the physical external reality, if that makes sense.
It totally does. And I think I also like to warn people that when you go on this journey, you have to be prepared to dismantle the life that you currently
Hmm.
know, right? Because even for
Yes.
me, I was like leveling up, shifting things so much. And it was like all of a sudden, like everybody was gone. Like the former friends
Yeah.
that I had. And then I had a few, and I know a ton of great people have come in because, of course, the old ones had to go to make room, like you said.
Yeah.
But I got so good at being with myself internally that I got to a place that honestly I was like, I prefer to be by myself
Yeah.
and living in my internal world that is like it's limitless. So I almost went too far the other way for a bit there. And then, because I was protecting myself, I was like, okay, I got rid of all these crappy relationships and then had to rebalance that. So it really is a balance in both directions. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the some of those universal laws, law of balance and the law of gender, the masculine, feminine, waiting for seasons to come into place where timing cycles happen.
Hmm.
And we go sometimes more in our masculine, and that's the summertime. We're more out, we're more like doing stuff. And then this cycle of, the season of winter where we're going more internal, we're staying at
Oh,
home,
yeah.
we're chilling out of it, we're not like getting out there as much, or it's much more the feminine downtime energy.
Yeah, I love that. And just like, another comment on timing for people, I think it's really important also to point out that you, that's also key is you really have to let go of any timeline that you
Yes.
believed, right? Or that you want because the universe truly has no timeline. And once you can let go of the how and the when, that's when things also start shifting.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And it's one of those things like, we're humans, we still believe in time and we want things to happen fast.
Mm.
But anything is actually possible given that we don't have that expectation of time. So
Yes.
if you want to, meet your soulmate, yes, that can definitely happen for you, whether it be tomorrow, in 3 months, or in 5 or 10 years. That's the expectation we need to manage as well. And it can be challenging because, we want stuff straight away so we can get the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. So that's a really good point.
Yeah, totally. And you speed up your timeline when you really just let it go and you just start focusing mainly on raising your vibration and then things quicken
Yeah.
up, right?
Yeah. And
Yeah,
letting go of those blocks for sure.
totally. So, how can people work with you, Michelle?
Cool. Thank you so much. I actually have a free masterclass right now. It teaches you those 3 steps that I mentioned on how to meet and attract your ideal partner without the dating thing. Because I feel like the dating thing is what's putting a lot of women off from actually meeting somebody because there's this belief that you have to go through a dating process, you have to use the apps, you have to find a matchmaker or something like that. So I have on my website that free training. You can also DM me on Instagram at Michelle Chung Coach, and I'm also on LinkedIn.
I love it. Is there any final words of advice you'd like to leave?
It's a great question. I think hiding in plain sight can be a good thing at some points where you're actually doing the internal and focusing on that for the period that you need, whether it be, you take your time to do that and know that your soulmate, your ideal partner does exist for you. It's a matter of meeting on both of your journeys, that he'll be on his journey as well. Like my partner was married when I was single for 5 years. So, it wasn't until he divorced and a couple of years later we actually met. So just know that he's on his journey as well. And if you're following your vision, just like you are, Lindsey, follow your mission and your movement, he will be there to meet you along the way. And often he'll be part of your vision and your mission. And that's what truly makes that soul partnership.
Oh, I love that. Well, this is going to be a great episode. I can't wait to drop this.
Yay.
Well, this was an amazing conversation, and I will put all of the stuff in the show notes and tag you on the post so people can find you. And we're just going to have another chat down the road as well.
100%. I want to have you back on my podcast too.
It's going to be great. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lindsey.
Thank you for joining me on the Hiding in Plain Sight podcast. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. And please take a moment to subscribe and leave a review. Feedback and episode ideas helps us reach more listeners. I would love to connect with you further. You can visit my website at lindseymazza.com and add me on Instagram at Lindsey D. Mazza. Until next time, keep sharing your stories and vulnerabilities, because one story at a time connects us all.